The night sky burned with fire as Captain Ray Carter's shuttle spiraled down toward the alien world. Sparks and smoke filled the cockpit. Alarms screamed in his ears. The enemy had found him. He fought with the controls, trying to pull the craft out of its death dive, but the engines were gone. All he could see below was a glowing ocean of strange blue light and jagged black land. The shuttle hit the surface hard, metal screaming against stone. Ray's head slammed against the side, and the world turned white. When his vision cleared, he was hanging half out of the wreckage. The air here felt thick, electric, and it carried a strange scent, sweet but sharp. He tried to reach for his weapon, but a shadow fell over him. Figures stepped from the darkness, tall and slender. Their skin was silver, glowing faintly in the dim light. Their hair shimmered like liquid metal, and their eyes were violet, bright and unblinking. They moved with a strange grace, silent yet powerful. There was something almost human about them, but also something deeply alien. Ray blinked, trying to focus. The figures wore armor that clung to their forms like flowing glass. No sound of boots, only the faint hum of energy coming from the strange staffs they carried. The leader stepped forward, her gaze fixed on him. She spoke in a language he couldn't understand, her voice low but commanding. Two of them approached, their hands glowing faintly blue. Before Ray could react, a wave of energy hit him, his muscles locking instantly. His body collapsed to the ground, his mind still sharp but unable to move. They studied him closely, speaking quickly to each other. He could feel their eyes scanning every detail of his face, his uniform. One of them reached out, brushing a strand of his hair between her fingers. As if inspecting a strange animal, the leader tilted her head, her eyes narrowing. She spoke again, one single sharp command. The two warriors knelt beside him, and in one smooth motion, they began to cut away the shredded parts of his uniform. Their touch was clinical, not gentle. Ray's heart pounded. He realized something strange. Not one of them looked male. Every face, every voice, every body shape was feminine, and the way they looked at him, it wasn't just curiosity. It was as if they had never seen anyone like him before. They stripped away more of his armor, whispering to each other. One of them said a word that made the others pause. All their eyes turned toward him with new intensity. The leader crouched down, her violet gaze locking with his for a moment. Ray felt like she could see through his soul. Then she spoke slowly, almost as if she wanted him to understand. Strip him. We must know what he is. The words hit him harder than the crash. How did she know human speech? Even a little. Ray tried to speak, to ask who they were, but his voice was weak. They didn't answer. Instead, they lifted him with ease, far more strength than their slim frame suggested. They carried him through the glowing forest. The ground pulsed faintly with blue light, and strange plants swayed even though there was no wind. Far above, enormous floating shapes drifted silently across the sky like living ships. Ray caught glimpses of alien structures in the distance, towers that twisted upward like the bones of some giant creature. The air seemed to hum all around him. Finally, they entered a massive circular chamber carved from black stone. In the center was a glowing platform covered with shifting patterns of light. They laid him upon it, and he felt the heat of the energy beneath him. Strange machines floated nearby, scanning his body with beams of green light. Symbols danced in the air above him. He couldn't read them, but he knew. They were building a profile of him. The aliens gathered around, murmuring in their strange tongue. One of them touched his hand and examined it closely, tracing the lines of his palm. Another leaned closer to his face, watching the movement of his eyes. The leader stood at the edge of the platform, her gaze fixed and unreadable. She spoke again, her voice like ice. "This one is dangerous," she said in her language, though Ray could not understand. But he didn't need to understand the words. He could hear it in her tone. Ray's pulse quickened. If they thought he was dangerous, what would they do to him? He struggled against the energy holding him still, but it was useless. The glowing restraints tightened. and a strange, cold mist filled the chamber. The last thing he saw before the darkness took him was the leader's violet eyes, unblinking, watching him. Like a puzzle that must be solved. And in that moment, Ray knew this was no ordinary capture. They weren't just enemies, they were something far stranger, something he couldn't yet understand. Ray woke to a soft humming sound. The air was warm, heavy with a strange perfume that made his head feel light. He wasn't in the forest anymore. He was inside a vast room that glowed with shifting colors. Like the inside of a living creature, the surface beneath him was not metal, not stone. It pulsed faintly, as if alive. Thin strands of light ran under his body, moving in patterns he didn't understand. When he tried to sit up, something invisible pushed him back down. He was trapped under an unseen weight. Figures moved at the edges of his vision. They were the same silver-skinned women as before. But now they wore long flowing robes instead of armor. Their eyes reflected the light like mirrors. They spoke to each other in soft musical tones. It almost sounded like singing, but the rhythm was strange. One step forward, carrying a curved device that hovered in the air like it was floating on water. She guided it over his chest. A thin beam of green light traced across his skin. The device made a quiet chime, and symbols appeared in the air between them. Ray couldn't read them. But from the way the women leaned closer, he knew the results were surprising. They began speaking faster, voices overlapping. Their expressions changed from curiosity to something else. Concern, maybe even fear. The leader was not here. Instead, a different figure approached, older. Her silver skin marked with faint patterns like scars. Her robe was deep crimson, and small pieces of crystal hung from her sleeves. Clicking softly when she moved, she leaned over Ray, her face close to his. Her eyes were different from the others. Not just violet, but with a ring of bright white around the pupils. She studied him in silence for a long time. Then she spoke a single word, and the room went still. Two younger women stepped forward, carrying long black tubes. With a slow twist, the tubes opened, releasing small glowing spheres that floated into the air. They began circling Ray, each one scanning a different part of his body. He could feel a faint vibration wherever they passed, like tiny insects brushing his skin. The older alien spoke again, her tone sharper now. One of the women pointed toward Ray's chest, then to his head. They seemed to be debating something, and he didn't like the way their voices had grown tense. He caught one word that sounded almost like a human word. Weapon. Ray's pulse quickened. Were they calling him a weapon? Were they afraid of him or planning to use him? The examination changed. The women no longer moved with slow grace. Now they pulled at his arms, stretched his fingers, measured the distance between his shoulders. One even pressed her hand against his chest, feeling the beat of his heart. She pulled back quickly, whispering something that made the others look at him with new interest. A panel in the wall slid open with a hiss. From the darkness, a tall figure stepped inside it. Was the leader from before, Commander Sarai. Her armor shimmered under the strange light, and in her hand was a weapon unlike any Ray had seen, long, thin, and humming with energy. She walked to the side of the platform. Her violet eyes locked on him. The women in robes bowed their heads slightly, but Sarai did not look at them. She was studying only him. After a moment of silence, she spoke slowly. This time, the words were in his language, broken but clear. You are not like us, she said. Where are the others? Ray's voice was rough, but he forced himself to speak. Others? There are no others. She tilted her head, as if weighing the truth of his answer. Then she glanced at the older alien, who shook her head slightly. Sarai stepped closer, her shadow falling across his face. We will know, she said, her voice quiet but cold. One way or another. She raised her hand, and the invisible force holding him down tightened until he could barely breathe. The humming in the room grew louder. The floating spheres pressed closer, their green beams brightening. Ray's heart pounded in his chest. In that moment, he realized the truth. They weren't just examining him. They were deciding if he should live. Ray sat alone in the strange glowing cell. The walls were not metal, but a smooth, living surface that pulsed faintly. The air was warm and dry, yet it carried that same sweet, sharp scent that clung to everything here. He had lost track of time. No windows, no sun, only the slow breathing of the room around him. A thin, shimmering barrier sealed the cell's only opening. He had tested it once. The moment his hand touched it, a surge of energy slammed through his body. He would not try again. Now he waited, listening to the faint hum that seemed to come from everywhere. Then the barrier rippled. A figure stepped through. Not in armor, but in a pale robe that trailed behind her like mist. She was younger than the others, her silver skin smoother, her violet eyes softer. She carried no weapon, only a small device in her hand. She glanced over her shoulder before speaking. "You can understand me?" she asked slowly. Her voice was hesitant, her words imperfect but clear enough. Ray sat up, his muscles tense. "I can," he said. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "My name is Lyra," she whispered. "I am not supposed to be here." Ray studied her face. There was no mockery in her eyes, only urgency. "Why?" he asked. She glanced at the walls as if they could hear her. "Because what I will tell you is forbidden." She knelt beside him, keeping her voice low. "My people once had others like you," she said. Ray frowned. "You mean men?" Lyra nodded slowly. "Yes, males. But they are gone." Her words carried a weight. "Gone?" Ray pressed. "Erased," she said, her tone bitter. "The High Council destroyed them many generations ago. They said males brought war, chaos. So they made sure none remained." Ray felt a cold shiver run through him. "Then how we grow our young in the life chambers," she said quickly. "No parents. Only chosen mothers, all female. It has been this way for centuries." She glanced toward the barrier again. Her voice dropped to almost nothing. "They do not want the past remembered. Even speaking the word male can bring punishment. And now you are here. Proof that the old history is true." Ray's mind raced. If what she said was true, then he was not just a prisoner. He was a threat to their entire system. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked. Her eyes hardened. "Because they will not let you leave alive." Silence filled the cell for a moment. Ray's heartbeat seemed loud in his ears. "Then help me escape," he said. Lyra shook her head sharply. "If you run, they will hunt you across the stars. The Council fears what you are, but some of us think you could change everything." Her words hung in the air, heavy and dangerous. Ray opened his mouth to speak, but the barrier flared bright. Heavy footsteps approached. Lyra stood quickly, slipping the small device back into her robe. Through the shimmering entrance stepped Commander Sarai. Her armor caught the light like a blade. Her eyes flicked from Ray to Lyra, sharp and suspicious. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Sarai's voice cut the silence. "You have been here too long, Lyra," she said coldly. Lyra bowed her head but did not answer. Sarai's gaze returned to Ray, her expression unreadable, her voice soft but filled with steel. "Tomorrow, human, we will learn every truth you hide." The barrier flared again, sealing the cell. Lyra was gone, and Ray was left with a single thought burning in his mind. Whatever came next, it would decide whether he lived or disappeared like the others before him. The cell was silent except for the slow pulse of the walls. Ray sat with his back to the corner, every muscle coiled like a spring. Lyra's words from before echoed in his head. "They will not let you leave alive." He didn't know if he could trust her, but he knew one thing: waiting meant dying. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time had no shape here then, without warning. The barrier rippled. Lyra stepped through, her eyes darting left and right. She held a small crystal in her hand, glowing faintly blue. "This will break the seal for only a few moments," she whispered. Ray was already on his feet. "Why now?" he asked, because Sarai will be at the council hall. This is your only chance, she said. Her voice trembled, but her hands moved with speed. She pressed the crystal against the barrier, and it melted away like water. They stepped into the corridor. The walls glowed faintly, and strange symbols pulsed along their surface. Ray followed close, matching her steps. She moved quickly, but every few moments she froze, listening. The air here carried a low hum, a sound that shifted when someone nearby was moving. They reached a junction where 3 corridors met. Lyra pointed to the left. This leads to the lower chambers. There is a service hatch to the outside, she said. Ray nodded, but as they started forward, a sharp hiss split the air. From the shadows ahead, 2 alien guards stepped out. Their armor gleamed, and their staffs crackled with blue energy. One spoke sharply in their language. Lyra didn't answer. She grabbed Ray's arm and ran. The guards shouted, and the chase began. Ray's boots pounded against the smooth floor. The walls blurred past, glowing lines flashing red as alarms began to wail. He heard the sharp crack of an energy shot and felt the air ripple beside him. They turned a corner and plunged into a narrow passage lit only by faint green lights. The sound of pursuit echoed behind them. Faster, Lyra urged. Ray could hear more footsteps joining the chase, more guards. The passage opened into a wide chamber filled with massive pipes that pumped glowing liquid. The air was hotter here, almost burning. Lyra darted between the pipes, weaving through the maze. Ray followed, his heart hammering. The guards' voices grew closer. Suddenly, Lyra stopped beside a round hatch set into the floor. She knelt and pressed her hand against a glowing panel. The hatch hissed open, revealing a ladder that plunged into darkness. Down, she ordered. Ray dropped into the shaft without hesitation, climbing fast. The sound of the hatch sealing above them echoed like a gunshot. The darkness swallowed them, broken only by the faint glow from Lyra's crystal. They climbed for what felt like forever until the ladder ended in another narrow corridor. The walls here were rougher, unfinished. It smelled damp and metallic. These are the old tunnels, Lyra said quietly. The council closed them decades ago. But some still remember the paths. Ray's instincts told him they weren't safe yet. Every shadow felt alive. Every sound echoed too long. Then, faintly, he heard movement ahead. Not the quick steps of guards, slower, heavier, like something was waiting for them. Lyra froze, her hand tightening on the crystal. Her voice was barely a whisper. We are not alone down here. The sound in the tunnel grew louder. Not boots, not machines. A slow dragging noise, like metal scraping on stone. Ray's eyes searched the darkness. The glow from Lyra's crystal trembled in her hand. Keep moving, she whispered, but her voice had lost its calm. They turned a corner and froze. Shapes stood in the shadows ahead. At first, Ray thought they were guards, but their armor was mismatched, dented and marked with strange painted symbols. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, not the bright violet of the others, but a duller shade. Weapons were pointed at them, but these weapons were not the sleek glass-like tools of the city. They were old, heavy, patched together from scrap and parts of machines. A low voice spoke from the dark. You've brought him here. Lyra stiffened. He is not your enemy, she said quickly. The voice laughed, not with humor, but like someone remembering an old wound. We will decide that. The figures stepped closer, and Ray saw their faces. They were the same species as the women above, but their skin bore scars, some hidden, some carved into patterns like badges. Their clothing was made from scraps of cloth and armor plates. They moved like predators, silent but ready to strike. One woman, taller than the rest, stepped forward, her eyes locked on Ray, scanning him like a weapon. It's true, she said slowly. A male, the others murmured in their language. Their voices sharp, almost angry. Ray could feel the tension building. If you know what I am, then you know why I'm here, he said. The tall woman tilted her head. We know why you're hunted, she said. The council fears you. And not without reason. She walked around him, studying his posture, his size, his eyes. Ray didn't like the way her gaze lingered, not with fear, but with calculation. "You're a soldier," she said. It wasn't a question. Ray stayed silent. "Good. We may need one," she added, almost to herself. Lyra stepped forward, her voice urgent. "Tira, we have no time. The guards will come." The tall woman, Tira, gave a short signal. Two of the rebels moved to seal a heavy door behind them, the sound of grinding metal filling the tunnel. They led Ray and Lyra deeper underground. The walls changed from rough stone to old metal corridors. Faded markings in an unknown language ran along the sides. Lights flickered weakly overhead. The air smelled of oil, rust, and something faintly sweet. The same scent from the city, but weaker here. Finally, they entered a wide chamber lit by hanging lamps made from glowing crystals. Dozens of rebels stood around makeshift tables, repairing weapons, studying maps carved into slabs of stone. When Ray entered, all eyes turned to him. The murmurs began again. His presence was dangerous here, but also magnetic. Tira stood beside him and addressed the room. "Sisters, you see what walks among us," she said, "the last of what they erased." Some faces lit with excitement, others hardened with suspicion. An older rebel stepped forward, her voice low but sharp. "If the council learns we have him, they will burn this place." Tira's smile was thin. "Then we must use him before they can." Ray's instincts flared. "Use me for what?" he asked. Tira met his gaze. "To take back what they stole. Our history, our freedom, our future." The chamber went quiet. Ray looked from face to face. Some eyes begged for hope. Others warned of danger. Lyra's hand brushed his arm, a silent reminder that this was not yet safety. He was not a guest here. He was a gamble. The Sky Dome was not a building. It was a city in the air, a great circle of glass and silver that floated high above the alien capital. Its walls were clear, showing the endless black of space beyond. Thin bridges connected its outer rings to the inner core where the council kept its strongest defenses. Ray stood with Tira and the rebels in a hidden cargo lift. The hum of the old machinery vibrated through the floor. This was their chance. The dome's shield core was here. If they could shut it down, Ray could escape the planet, and the rebels could send their own message to the galaxy. But Lyra's face was tight with worry. "Sarai will be here," she said quietly. Tira smirked. "Let her come." The lift doors slid open, and the rebels moved fast. They were shadows in motion. Using the service walkways above the main chamber, below them, alien guards in gleaming armor patrolled in perfect formation. The air shimmered faintly, the sign of the active shield field. Ray's military instincts kicked in. 2 minutes. "Until they notice," he whispered. Tira gave the signal, and the rebels dropped smoke charges into the chamber. Thick clouds of white hissed outward, blinding the guards. The rebels slid down cables. Silent and fast, Ray landed hard, rolling into cover behind a glowing pillar. Energy bolts flashed through the smoke. Sparks burst against the walls. The rebels moved in pairs, covering each other. Ray grabbed a fallen guard's staff and felt the weapon hum in his grip. It was lighter than it looked, and deadly. Through the chaos, Lyra reached the shield console. Her fingers flew over the glowing controls. "Almost there," she called. Then a cold, sharp voice cut through the noise. "Stand down." The smoke parted, and Commander Sarai stepped forward. Her armor gleamed like liquid glass. Her weapon was drawn, its blade burning with white light. The guards paused, waiting for her command. Sarai's eyes locked on Ray. "You think breaking the shield will save you?" she said. Her tone wasn't mocking. It was tired. Ray tightened his grip on the staff. "It's my only way out," he said. Sarai stepped closer. "You don't understand. If the shield falls, something far worse will come through." The words froze him for a second. "What are you talking about?" Her gaze flicked to the rebels. "Ask your new friends what they keep in the old tunnels," she said, her voice sharp. Tira's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. Sarai's blade lowered slightly. "I'm not here to kill you, human. I'm here to stop them from using you." The rebels shifted uncomfortably. Lyra's hands hovered over the console, her eyes darting between Ray and Sarai. The air inside the dome felt heavier. Ray's instincts screamed at him. This wasn't just a fight. It was a game with too many players, and for the first time, he wasn't sure who the enemy really was. The sky dome was silent, except for the low hum of the shield core. Smoke from the battle drifted in the air, twisting in the gravity currents. Ray stood between Tira and Sarai. Two leaders, two stories, and both wanted him. Sarai's blade stayed low, but her voice was sharp. "If you take down the shield, you will doom this planet," she said. Tira stepped forward, her eyes burning. "If the shield stays, our people will remain slaves to the Council's lies." Ray's jaw tightened. "What's outside the shield?" he asked. Both women hesitated. It was Sarai who answered first. "The Void Swarm," she said. "They feed on living worlds. They destroyed the males of our kind long before the Council erased their memory." Lyra's hands trembled over the console. "She's telling the truth. But she's leaving something out," Lyra said. Ray turned to her. Lyra's voice was quiet, almost shaking. "The swarm doesn't just destroy, they change what they touch. The Council made a deal with them." The words hung heavy. Tira's face hardened. "A deal to keep themselves in power, even if it means losing everything else." Sarai's eyes narrowed. "A deal to keep our people alive, something you rebels don't understand." Ray felt the weight of the choice pressing on him. He could destroy the shield and escape, but if Sarai was right, the swarm would come. If he left it up, he would stay trapped, a tool in someone's game. He looked at Lyra. "If I stay, what happens?" Her eyes searched his face. "Then you become the first male in centuries, and maybe the last chance to fix what's broken," she said. The chamber seemed smaller now. The hum of the shield core grew louder, pulsing with each second. Ray's mind raced. Soldier training told him to survive, but something deeper told him survival wasn't enough, not if the truth was bigger than him. Slowly, he stepped toward the console. Lyra watched him, breath held. Sarai tightened her grip on her blade. Tira's hand hovered near her weapon. Ray's fingers touched the control panel. "Then we don't destroy it," he said. "We change it." The lights in the room shifted. The shield's hum changed pitch through the clear dome above. The night sky shimmered, and for just a moment, far beyond the stars, something moved, something vast, something waiting. Sarai's face was unreadable. Tira's eyes widened in shock. Lyra whispered one word. "They've seen us," and in that instant, Ray knew. Whatever came next would not be a war between rebels and council. It would be a war for the galaxy.